Australia is a nation known for its striking contrast between a highly developed society and vast, sparsely populated areas. It is the sixth largest country by land area, covering approximately 7.7 million square kilometers, yet its population density remains among the lowest globally. With a population of around 26 million people, Australia has a density of roughly 3.3 individuals per square kilometer, a stark difference when compared to other major countries like the United States with 34.2 people per square kilometer, or the United Kingdom with over 270 people per square kilometer. This juxtaposition of a vast, largely uninhabited landmass against pockets of highly concentrated urban centers raises intriguing questions. Why is Australia so vast, yet so empty? The answer lies in a combination of historical, geographical, environmental, and socio-economic factors. Below is a comprehensive exploration of the reasons behind Australia's sparsity and why much of its territory remains uninhabited. One of the primary reasons for Australia's sparse population is its harsh geography and environment. A significant portion of the Australian landmass consists of arid or semi-arid land, especially in the interior, known as the Outback. The Australian Outback, which covers approximately 70% of the continent, is characterized by desert landscapes, harsh climatic conditions, and minimal rainfall. The Simpson Desert, the Great Victoria Desert, and the Gibson Desert are among the notable desert regions that dominate the interior. These areas are incredibly difficult to inhabit due to extreme temperatures. Summer temperatures can easily exceed 45 degrees Celsius or 113 degrees Fahrenheit, and the lack of water makes sustained habitation incredibly difficult. Additionally, Australia is the driest inhabited continent on Earth, with many regions receiving less than 250 millimeters of rainfall annually. This has made the development of agriculture or sustainable human settlement in these areas nearly impossible without significant technological interventions. The interior is also vast and remote, with limited infrastructure. Roads, electricity, and communication services are sparse, and travel between towns can take hours or even days. Most Australians live along the coast, with the largest urban centres located in regions with more temperate climates. Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane and Perth are all situated in coastal or near-coastal areas with access to relatively fertile land and more reliable water supplies. The East Coast, in particular, benefits from more moderate, livable conditions. As a result, Australia's population is overwhelmingly clustered in a few urban centres. Approximately 85% of Australians live within 50 kilometers of the coast. The southeast and southwest corners of the country house the majority of the population due to the favorable climate and economic opportunities available in these regions. Historical and colonial context. Aboriginal population distribution. Australia's indigenous population, the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, had inhabited the continent for over 65,000 years before European settlement. Aboriginal populations were traditionally semi-nomadic and highly adapted to the continent's challenging environmental conditions. While indigenous groups spread across Australia, their population densities were relatively low, due in large part to the need for large tracts of land to sustain hunter-gatherer lifestyles in arid and semi-arid regions. In some areas, particularly along coastal regions and river systems, indigenous communities were able to establish more permanent settlements due to access to better resources like water and food. However, much of Australia's harsh interior remained sparsely populated even in pre-colonial times. European colonization and the push for coastal settlement. European colonization began in 1788 with the establishment of the first British colony in New South Wales. Early settlers faced many challenges, including a lack of familiarity with the Australian environment and the absence of European-style fertile farmlands in many areas. The colonists quickly realized that the interior's aridity and harsh conditions made it unsuitable for the type of agriculture they were accustomed to. As a result, most of the population growth during the 19th and early 20th centuries was concentrated in coastal regions. The temperate zones along the southeastern and southwestern coastlines were seen as the most viable for settlement. This pattern of coastal development has persisted through to modern times, resulting in the heavy urbanization of cities like Sydney and Melbourne and the continued underdevelopment of the interior. The 1850s saw a series of gold rushes, particularly in Victoria and New South Wales, which contributed to population growth. However, even with the influx of people drawn to the gold fields, the migration pattern remained coastal-centric. Gold rush towns did emerge in interior regions, such as Ballarat and Bendigo, but they were not far from existing population centers. Economic and agricultural limitations. Agriculture and pastoralism have historically been crucial components of Australia's economy. However, large-scale agriculture is predominantly concentrated in regions with more fertile soil and reliable rainfall, such as the Murray-Darling Basin in the southeast and the wheat belts of Western Australia. The arid interior is unsuitable for most types of crop farming, and even livestock pastoralism in these regions is limited by the lack of grazing vegetation and water. Efforts to introduce large-scale irrigation projects, such as the Snowy Mountain Scheme, have allowed some interior regions to become agriculturally productive. However, these ventures remain exceptions rather than the norm, and they depend heavily on technological interventions to counter the natural environmental constraints. Mining as a lifeline for the interior. One of the few economic activities that has thrived in Australia's interior is mining. The country is rich in natural resources, including iron ore, coal, gold, and natural gas, which are primarily extracted from remote, sparsely populated areas. Towns like Kalgoorlie in Western Australia and Mount Isa in Queensland exist primarily due to mining activities. Mining towns, however, are often transient and highly dependent on the cyclical nature of commodity prices. Once resources are depleted or become less economically viable to extract, these towns can decline rapidly, leaving the interior even more sparsely populated. Socio-economic and infrastructure challenges. The cost of infrastructure in remote areas. One of the biggest challenges in populating Australia's vast interior is the cost of developing infrastructure in such remote and inhospitable regions. Building roads, railways, and utilities over vast distances is incredibly expensive, and maintaining these services for small, dispersed populations is even more so. The lack of infrastructure has deterred large-scale settlement and investment in the interior, further contributing to its emptiness. In contrast, coastal cities benefit from economies of scale. The high population densities in urban centers allow for more efficient and cost-effective infrastructure development, which in turn attracts more people and investment. Technological solutions and remote work. In recent years, technological advancements have provided new opportunities for developing remote areas. Telecommunications improvements have allowed more people to work remotely, and this has opened up the potential for greater population distribution. However, despite these advancements, the overwhelming preference remains for urban living, with people opting to live near urban amenities, healthcare, education, and entertainment options. Cultural and lifestyle preferences. Urbanization and the Australian lifestyle. Australia, like many developed nations, has seen a significant trend toward urbanization. The vast majority of Australians prefer to live in cities where they have access to better job opportunities, healthcare, education, and social services. The cultural appeal of coastal living, coupled with the economic opportunities offered in urban centres, has driven continuous growth in cities like Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane. Environmental conservation and national parks. A significant portion of Australia's landmass is protected under national park status or designated for conservation purposes. The country boasts a rich diversity of flora and fauna, and much of its natural landscape has been preserved from urban or agricultural development. The vast emptiness of the interior is, in many ways, seen as a benefit, contributing to Australia's image as a country with breathtaking natural landscapes and wilderness areas. Government policies and future prospects. The Australian government has occasionally implemented policies to encourage settlement in regional and rural areas, but these efforts have had limited success. Incentives such as tax breaks, grants, and infrastructure investments have been introduced to encourage population dispersal. However, the significant lifestyle and economic advantages offered by urban centers continue to draw people toward the coasts. In the future, climate change could play a role in reshaping Australia's population distribution. Rising sea levels and changing weather patterns may render some coastal areas less habitable, potentially pushing populations inland. However, this would likely require substantial investments in infrastructure and water management to make the interior more livable. Conclusion: Australia's vast and empty interior is a product of its unique geography, harsh environmental conditions, and historical settlement patterns. While it is a highly developed nation with world-class cities and economic opportunities, much of its land remains uninhabited due to the combination of arid climates, limited resources, and high infrastructure costs. As a result, Australia remains both vast and sparsely populated, with most of its population clustered in a few coastal urban centers. This pattern is unlikely to change drastically in the near future, though advances in technology and changes in climate could potentially alter the distribution of its population over time.